computer science, and then I switched to accounting. But I said, no, this is just what I'm doing while I'm in school. And then eventually one day they were going to promote someone into a front office manager position, and I didn't think they were the right fit, so I said I would do it. Activation of the lobby space in the public areas has been a big plus in our industry. One other challenge when you have a third-party management company running your hotel is the interest of the management company and the ownership are not always aligned. And that's where asset management comes in. Again, as technology grew so fast, we didn't, in the beginning, hotels did not keep up with that. I think for the most part, I feel pretty strongly that the bandwidth is where it needs to be. It's always going to have to increase because there's more and more usage.
Hello, everyone. It is time for another episode of our podcast, Reshape Hospitality with Tech. I am Maya, your host, and with me is my co-host, Kaze. In today's episode, we are joined by David Gould. He is a hospitality expert with tons of experience and impressive achievements. He will be sharing some interesting insight about the industry and what is going to impact the industry in coming years. Welcome and pleasure to have you on our show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite.
Your career path in the industry has been impressive. Tell us a bit about yourself. When did you first jump into the industry? Were there any specific experiences that really shaped your career? And we are curious to know what sparked your interest to work in the hospitality industry.
Well, I started about 100 years ago when I was 16. I was really a waiter at a little 100-room exterior quarter Holiday Inn in a rural town in Louisiana. And it was just a high school job, right? And as I went through college, I continued working my way through college. So I was working at hotels, mostly in Baton Rouge and in New Orleans. But I didn't really look at that as a career for a long time. In fact, I would get offers to be a supervisor or a manager, or like, hey, we think we'd be good at this. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm in actually computer science. And then I switched to accounting. But I said, no, this is just what I'm doing while I'm in school. And then eventually one day they were going to promote someone into a front office manager position, and I didn't think they were the right fit, so I said I would do it. And they were a little surprised because they didn't know my background. I had already a number of years. So, once I took that management position, I was really hooked, and suddenly realized, hey, this is a great career. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and it worked out pretty well for me. So.
David, everyone faces challenges in their career. In fact, our audience would like to know what were the major challenges you have faced and what are the lessons you have taken away from those challenges?
Well, first of all, the biggest challenges I've gone through is what the whole industry has gone through. So I was a general manager during 9/11 when that happened, and we thought, this was the worst. It was at the time the worst event affecting hotels. And then the recession in 2008, 2009 came, and that was really devastating. I was asset management at the time, and we had hotels that lost 35% of their business overnight. And we thought that was, end all be all, and, get the T-shirt kind of thing. And then, of course, the pandemic happened, and navigating not just during the pandemic, but post-pandemic of ramping back up, supply chain issues, labor issues. But we as an industry keep reinventing ourselves, and we figure out how to get it done. A lot of assistance from the brands on altering how we did things, but it's also through the management companies on how we did things. Personally, on the challenges, every hotel has its own quirks and opportunities and challenges. So it's there's been a number of obviously challenges throughout my career, but most of them are solvable. It's just taking a new problem, finding a solution to it, and there's always a solution, and then just focusing on thinking outside of the box so that what it is that you can do in order to do it. And I'm very collaborative. So I'll ask my team, I'll ask outside people, I'll call other industry people that I know in other companies and like, hey, have you dealt with this before? The advantage I have is that, being in hotels for 40 years, there's less and less things that I have not come across before, although that still happens surprisingly enough. But it usually kind of relates to something else where I can apply something maybe I've done in the past for that.
You mentioned about the pandemic, right? Now, tell me a little bit about the industry, David. You must have an idea, like after pandemic, there have been a major changes in the hotel industry. Many hotels have been focusing on touch-free experiences for guests and implementing smart devices such as sensor-based lights in rooms. But beyond that, what are some upcoming trends that you see in the hotel industry?
As far as upcoming trends, I think, it's still going the direction of where we've been going, is listening to the guest. There are, obviously different aspects. So one is just, making the hotel stay a memorable experience. It's no longer simply just, a place to stay at night. So the room's got to be, great. It's got to smell good. It's got to look good. It's got to be clean. Everything's got to work. So you just got to focus on those basics because that's never going to go away. And it's got to be comfortable, especially the bed. And I think that as an industry, we do really well with that. And then the other aspect is the technology part. Technology has, if you look at the career path that I've had over the last 40 years, my first, computer or reservation system was Holodecks. And there was no screen. It was like a teletype machine. Paper would come up, but you could communicate with other hotels or make reservations at other hotels, which was just outstanding. The idea of being able to check into a room on your phone was unheard of. It was like Dick Tracy kind of stuff. Like, yeah, that's going to happen sometime in 2030 or something like that. So our technology is a big deal because everybody is tied to their phone. I mean, basically at age 10, basically people are getting their phones and they're tied to it. I mean, they want to do everything on their phones. They take classes on their phone. They want to do their finances on their phone. They'll do Zoom calls on their phone. But also when it comes to hotels, they want to be able to check in. And now, you can choose your room, most hotels, or a lot of hotels, you can choose your room, check in, go straight to you don't have to wait in line. And what's interesting is it's grown so fast. When Hyatt Place was first developed, they put kiosks in the lobby so that people wouldn't have to wait in line and they could check in using the kiosks, but nobody used them. And this was like 2000, probably 2008, 2009. And nobody used them. So they took them out. But I think they were just a little ahead of their time and they were focused on, it wasn't the right medium. They're using a kiosk. And if you're going to get out of your car, go inside and check in, you might as well talk to the person standing there instead of ignoring them. But now you look, you walk into McDonald's, walk up to the counter, you go up to a kiosk, right? So Hyatt Place was a little bit ahead of their time, but just in that short, I say short period of time, it doesn't seem like it was long ago, but it's developed to where you're doing everything on your phone. And one of the things I think is coming or should come is if you have status with an airline. So I have 1K status with United Airlines. After I check in, I can look on my phone to see where I am on the upgrade list. And sometimes, I'm still like number 8 or 9 and it's full. So I know I'm not going to get on. But if hotels, if you're a Hilton Honors or Marriott Rewards or Bonvoy member, and you have any kind of status, the first thing you think of is like, oh, I'm going to get upgraded. And there are just so many upgrades that you can get. But you don't know that anybody's doing anything or that you're even on the list to be upgraded. So I think that's something where technology could enhance the guest experience. People who have status, even if it's a low status, you just want to know that, hey, I am somebody, and at least someone's thinking about giving me an upgrade, even if I don't get it.
Yeah, speaking about the guest experiences, David, like nowadays, hotels offer more than just a place to sleep, right? Guests can feel like a second home, providing comfort and relaxation amenities that make their stay truly enjoyable. So would you like to add more on this?
Sure. And it's not just confined to the hotel room. So, you have a full service hotel, you have a restaurant and lounge. Not a lot of people eat in the restaurant, but they want it there. If it's rainy or snowy out, and if they stay a week, they might eat there once. They'll hit it for breakfast maybe, but they want it available. Lounge will get a little more activity, but even the smaller hotels, you take a Hampton Inn, for example, they really have focused on, and Hyatt Place has done this, Courtyard has done this. They've really revamped the lobby to where it's not just a breakfast room. It's not just a place where you check in. They really design it now to where it's encouraging people, get out of your room and come down in the lobby where you're around other people. You don't have to talk to them, but you can be on your laptop or on your phone or just sit down there and watch the news rather than being stuck inside your room. So I think that activation of the lobby space and the public areas has been a big plus in our industry.
You work with some of the top hospitality management companies. So can you talk about what are some of the biggest opportunities and challenges hotel face when it comes to managing relationship with different stakeholders?
Sure. So when I was an asset manager for Moody National, I had 10 different management companies all reporting to me. And this was, 2007 until like 2011, 2010, something like that, because then we started our own management company. But one of the challenges with that was each one had its own set of financials. They would code things differently. So it was hard to have, from an analytical standpoint, comparing apples to apples across the different management companies, but also, being able to have from technology wise, having a dashboard where everything's imported. So we used to have just people who would load financials from the management companies into our template so that I could compare them, but it was really like an Excel file. And I know that there are systems out there that do that. So that was one of the challenges, but also, one thing I learned is there was a pretty wide spectrum on sophistication across different management companies. Some, had highly sophisticated systems, not just IT, but also the people, the processes, the whole system of the organization had, just top notch. And some were more old school. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it was more, it was like a briefcase rather than, a backpack. It's just a different approach. Still worked, but there was different levels of sophistication I saw across different management companies. So not all management companies, I learned, are equal, I should say. One other challenge when you have a third-party management company running your hotel is the interest of the management company and the ownership are not always aligned. And that's where asset management comes in, where you're trying to make sure that the management company's interests are aligned with yours. And I think management agreements should be written better, where the compensation is really as much tied to the profit as it is, obviously before the debt, but the hotel should be as profitable as possible. And if you only pay management fees based on the top line, there's not an alignment of interest because of the expense side, especially these days with costs going up. That's one of the other challenges we have these days are the costs, inflation, interest rates, and all that stuff.
You run your own hospitality consultant firm, right? So if you could tell us a bit about your consultancy, what projects are you currently working on, and what specific services do you offer to hotels?
Mm-hmm. That's great. So for all of my career, I have worked for other people, and at the end of summer last year, I decided to take a sabbatical from everything, work related. First time I've ever done that since I was 16, and really just thought about what I wanted to do next. I built a management company from scratch. I've done asset management. I've been a regional. I've been a general manager and beyond, below. And then I took another management company. I transitioned it from a family-run organization into a more corporate-run company professional management company with infrastructure, people, processes, and technology that wasn't there before. So I really, I had opportunities to do the same thing again. And I really, decided to step back at this point in my career and decide what I wanted to do next and where I wanted to do it. And most importantly, who I wanted to do it for. And I decided in having conversations with, I've got a lot of contacts in the industry and very willing to speak with me. And I found that a number of people are doing consulting and asset management. And I really like that aspect of it. There is a need that where you're the intermediary. So one of the things I do is asset management, and that's the intermediary between the ownership group, which may or may not, they might know real estate, and very often they know how to do real estate transactions, but they don't necessarily how to run a hotel. So when they hire a management company to run the hotel, they don't necessarily have the tools or the understanding of whether or not they're doing a good job, or are they doing the best job that they can, or are there things being billed to the hotel that maybe are not allowed by the management agreement. So asset management, in my role, what I can do for companies' ownership is to be that intermediary, watch over the management company and make sure that they are performing to their peak performance and doing what they should and not doing what they shouldn't do. The other thing I'm working on is some projects. I've had prior partners reach out and they've asked me to review management agreements, franchise agreements, compare different franchise opportunities for a specific project to give my input or feedback on what my recommendations are of a particular brand or management company. And I've got a group that is looking to develop hotels, and same thing. They aren't on the franchise side yet, but they're more focused on what company they're going to partner with in order for management and maybe partnership as in development of these hotels. And then the third thing is if there's a smaller management company, owner, operator, developer that has kind of been family run, and they want to transition, they want to grow and expand, and that family model doesn't always work. It's not always, expandable. There's no scaling. It doesn't work well anyway. So if they want to expand and really develop their company into a more professional, established company with infrastructure, then I can help get them in the right direction, make sure they get the right people on board, and help guide those people to get them started, and then let them go.
I would like to talk about how does your consultancy help hotels actually grow their operations?
It's really building through people. You've got everything in the company is successful or not successful based on the people who are running it. And when you're a smaller company, if you have 10 hotels, you can do that with an individual. I could do that as an individual. But when you start growing to 20 or 25 or 30 hotels, one person can't do it all. You have to build out the team. But before you build out the team, you've got to build a culture. You've got to decide what kind of company you're gonna be, so that you're bringing in the right people. And then you have to kind of step up your game with regard to the whole infrastructure. Like I mentioned earlier, it's the people, of course. And then it's the processes, making sure that there are specific processes on how we want to do things. What's important in the guest room? How are we going to do breakfast? How are we going to interact with the brands? Things like that. So what are our policies there? And of course, HR related policies as well. But the processes are important, and then the technology. You can't use Excel and Outlook for everything. So you've got to expand the infrastructure with technology in order to keep a good pulse, your finger on the pulse of all the properties. The more properties you have, the less you have, the less you can really dig into the details and monitor what's going on in all the hotels. So you've got to have real-time data. What is labor doing every day, basically? every week, what are the finances of that hotel? What are the expenditures so far the month? What are the revenues so far the month? Are we hitting the projections, exceeding them, or falling short, so that we can make real-time decisions to adjust the expenses so that we still provide a strong bottom line. But you also, you can't do everything remote. You've got to be on, boots on the ground. I'm a firm believer. I like to travel, but I love being at the hotel. The one thing I miss about being the general manager is I miss having my team and having my hotel and being able to visit with the housekeepers or the front desk staff or go check people in and talk to the guests, of course. But I miss that aspect. But you've got to, regardless of what position you're in, you've got to spend time at the hotels. You can't expect things without inspecting it. So you've got to be there. You got to know and get a feel. And it's not just a quick in and out. Quite often, I've spent time just hanging out in the lobby and working on my laptop, because you can hear what's going on. You get a better feel for what's going on, more so than if a corporate person shows up, does a 1 hour tour of the hotel and leaves. Everybody can be really behaved in a 1 hour period and hide what they don't want you to see. But yeah, it's spending time at the hotels.
So David, as someone who has been in this industry for a long time, my first question would be, what differences have you seen in the guest expectations and guest behaviors when it comes to technology? Are they more inclined towards technological amenities now, like fast Wi-Fi or in-room services, as compared to previously?
Sure. As an industry, we struggled with bandwidth. For people would have Sling and they're down, doing videos online, and everything would just slow down. It took us a little time. Again, as technology grew so fast, we didn't, in the beginning, hotels did not keep up with that. I think for the most part, I feel pretty strongly that the bandwidth is where it needs to be. It's always going to have to increase because there's more and more usage. What worked even 5 years ago is nowhere near fast enough now. So it's going to continue, but the brands are pretty much staying ahead of that, and independent hotels will just need to keep up with that as well. So the Wi-Fi, the internet access, that's I think there's a pretty good handle on that, and it'll continue to grow. I think where technology is headed is the continued whatever they can do on their phone. I mean, I picture, and actually I've seen this where one hotel I was at, you could use your phone to change the light settings in your room. I think that was in Vegas, actually. So you can adjust your lights. You can change your TV channel. You can set your AC. You can chat with the front desk. God forbid anybody pick up the phone in the room and call somebody to ask for more towels. Now you can just pick up your phone. You don't even have to be at the hotel. You can be at your conference, in your meeting, and think, oh, I meant to ask for more towels, and just send them a chat message. And then when you get back to your room, it's there. So it's just the ease of everything. Everything's got to be easy. We don't want to do anything that we don't have to do. We want to be, in fact, we'd like to just tell our phone, Siri, lower the lights, or bedtime or whatever. So I see that being a real big focus on making things easier and more interactive, and the more things you can do on your phone. You can be by the pool and order, a little frozen drink with the umbrella on it, rather than trying to find a waiter or something and track them down, or have to get up, leave your comfortable spot, and go find a bartender. So I think that's it. And then the other part is so many people have Netflix or Prime or entertainment options at home, and for the most part, I think that's come a long way, but I think there's some more opportunity there. People want to be in a hotel room and they want to log on to their own Netflix account and pick up where they left off, and not have to, everybody's got their binge watching, not everybody, but a lot of people have their binge watching shows that they want to pick up where they left off, and they don't want to think like, I don't even know what season I'm on, or what episode, so on. But I think that's a big part of it. Is the closer we can make that hotel to home life, is the better. But I think amenities as well, and nobody wants generic little bars of soap or I know people will travel with their own shampoo. Like if we have really good shampoo in the rooms, then that's kind of what they're expecting. They're not expecting cheap stuff anymore.
On this note, David, we have we have had people on this podcast who believe that technology will change everything about hospitality. We talked about if people don't want to pick up the phone anymore; they want everything to do on their phone or in the apps. But then we have people on our podcast who believe that technology is good; it's a good thing to have. But ultimately, hospitality is a people-centric business, and the human touch needs to be there for the hospitality to work. So, what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, technology is huge. It's very important, but it's not everything. And I don't know that it will totally change. It can't totally change the hotel because when you really boil it down, the core business is providing lodging. I mean, it's the basic as you can get a place to sleep overnight, and maybe conduct business or have a function, right? So that's the core. So the basics will never go away. The room's got to be clean. Everything's got to work. The bed's got to be comfortable. The bathroom's got to be clean. As far as the interaction part, there are a lot of people who don't want to interact with people, and I think it's a generational thing. I'm clearly from the generation of face to face, and there are a lot of us still out there, and I think even younger people still enjoy that interaction. As much as we have moved to Zoom and Teams and FaceTime and email, text messages, all these different ways of not interacting face to face, people still miss that and want that to some extent. They do that with their friends and family. They're not looking to make friends and family, with the hotel staff, but they still want to have that some sort of interaction. And some of it can be achieved, through personalization. I've received a text message after I've checked in instead of that annoying phone call saying, "Is everything great in your room?" Which I'm not a fan of that. But to get a text message saying, "Hey, this is Maria at the front desk, and let me know if you need anything during your stay." And that's great because now I have a method. I don't have to download anything. I don't have to look up a number. I don't have to, get up and walk over to the phone, and actually call and wonder who I'm getting at the front desk. Here's Maria, who's made it more personal, but it's easy for me to do. But I still feel like I'm talking to a person and not a robot. I think also, we're now in the world of AI, and even though it's been around for a little while, but it's really been a focus on how many different ways you can use AI. And I'm excited to see how that's going to play into future technology for hotels. So not just guest-facing issues. And we've all been on a website where a little chat box comes up and like, "Hey, I'm here to help if you want." And you type in and it's just it's a robot. But AI is going to be much better at that. When it comes to hotels, I think where AI can come into play is getting to know the guest. So if the guest is selecting their own room and they always choose the one furthest from the elevator, then they know it's like, "Hey, that guy doesn't like to be at the elevator." AI, I think, will really assist with revenue management. Revenue management systems are amazing now, and they have been for a while. What they do, the algorithms that they have behind it, but there are still flaws with that. One, a computer system that might be in Des Moines, Iowa, does not know what's actually going on in your market necessarily. But as AI develops, I think it's going to start being able to bring in more information about specific areas and towns, about conferences or festivals or special events, to where it will already know, "Hey, this is going on then, so we need to protect that time and not offer discounts and things like that." So I see AI playing a lot of different roles on the ability to manage a hotel both revenues and top line, but also the expenses, the management of that, and then guest interfacing and knowing the guest better without being creepy, but still knowing the guest and what they're like, so that you can provide that experience to them.
You have talked about AI and specifically in revenue management and guest-facing technology. How do you think AI can assist hoteliers other than those two areas? What about performance optimization? What about labor management or operational management in the hotels?
Yes, I think all of those are very important. In the last company I was at, we didn't have those systems, and we implemented them, and we put in a labor management tool, and it's great. It's so easy to use, not just from the property level. The general manager can look up, and it's easy. And green was good, red's bad, and it shows you your labor from the day before, so that if you're over your labor of what you expected based on the revenues, you can try to make some adjustments that day or the next day in order to try to refine it. But even from a corporate standpoint, again, going back to when I'm looking at multiple properties, I want to be able to see the dashboard, so I can look across multiple properties and see how everything is doing labor-wise. And labor is a daily thing you have to look at. We used to do it manually back in the day, and now we have systems in order to do that. Revenue management, I already kind of talked about that. But it's also, there's CRM programs or systems for sales, making sure we understand the customer. But you have to put the information in too. So it's making sure that the salespeople are logging their calls and their information and all. Because if that salesperson leaves, if they leave, you want the next salesperson to be able to come in and know everything about that account without having to have that transition part. Because we all know, person gives 2 weeks notice, you're not going to find a new salesperson in 2 weeks. So there is going to be a gap there where it's not going to be some overlap. Because even if you do find that person, usually they have to give 2 weeks notice also. So using the systems, having the systems is one thing, using it is something else. So the compliance and the importance of making sure systems are used and not just tossed out there is equally important.
You have talked about the generational gap or generational thing, because post-pandemic, we have moved towards contactless payment methods now. But the thing is that there is now another generation who doesn't even carry credit card or doesn't want to carry credit card. They want to pay with their phone, and their wallet, like Apple Pay and Google Pay. So has hospitality implemented those payment methods, alternate payment methods, as well as they should have, or are they still lagging?
No, I think they're lagging. I haven't experienced any hotels that took Apple Pay, and I've got an iPhone, and I'll use it. Not as much as I probably could or should. It's when I do think of it, it's so easy, because usually I already have my phone pretty handy instead of pulling out my wallet and pulling out the credit card, and it's usually a lot quicker than using a chip card that you have to slide in. But it is as fast as the RFC use of a credit card. But I don't think hotels are really there yet. Offhand, I don't believe I know of any that are doing that, but I think that's important. I think people more and more are going to start using that. Although a lot of people, still are a little sketchy on, the use of Apple Pay or things like that, Google Pay, because they're not used to it. And they, there's that feeling of, who has my information, is going to get it hacked. And unfortunately, there's still a lot of hacks that are going on these days. Change Healthcare is one that just got hacked, and it's affecting insurance claims all over the country, and it's pretty significant. But there are hospitals, hacks are still in the news enough to where people are nervous about using that. So I don't see it being a detriment, but I definitely see it being something in the future that will be embraced and sought after more by guests in the future.
We've talked about the threat of cybersecurity, and apart from that, what other challenges do you think that the industry is facing currently, and how the industry can resolve it through use of technology?
As an industry, the biggest, I think the biggest challenge right now is our costs, specifically interest rates. A hotel generally is refinanced every 10 years, and once that 10 years is up, you've got to refinance it. And lenders are being they're less interested in financing hotels. So there's a smaller pool of lenders that want to do hotels, but they're asking for a bigger equity position in order to do the financing. But the real killer is the interest rate is so huge now, and there's a number of owners that have interest rates that are flexible. They're tied to LIBOR. Those costs. You talked about the size of a mortgage. Those interest costs that go up by 3 or 4%. Points that makes a huge impact on the profitability of hotels. So I think interest rates are a huge issue right now. In fact, I think it's slowing down the transactions. So it's hard to sell a hotel because the buyer is going to have to pay a higher interest rate than probably what you're paying. So you're going to hang on to that hotel. So transactions are going to slow down. And I think they probably already have, and will probably continue to do so until the interest rates start coming off. But the cost of goods and services, labor, all have skyrocketed post-pandemic, but particularly over the last couple of years, expenses. And you see this personally. You go to the grocery store and you look at the gas prices and things like that. Everything is going up significantly, and then you also have some locales or municipalities or states that are driving up minimum wage, and that's obviously a challenge. So if we've already had increases in labor anyway, and now you're artificially kind of pushing it up even further than what the supply and demand would call for. It makes it difficult because then you're increasing prices. So in Los Angeles, the minimum wage for fast food workers, I think, is at $20 now. Just recently went into effect. That's a little bit different because if you're a Taco Bell and there's a McDonald's next to you, okay, you both have to pay at least $20. So the competition isn't. I mean, it's not a great thing in my opinion, but the competition is there. When you're looking at a hotel, you're competing with other cities often. So if you're looking at a conference or a meeting, the higher cost for Seattle, for example, or Los Angeles compared to Nashville might be somewhere a conference or a meeting organizer is going to go to Nashville because the prices are lower, because maybe the labor cost is lower, or the taxes are lower and things like that. So that's the challenges are the costs and the expenses right now. I think the revenue's there. I think we're pretty much back to pre-pandemic levels for the most part. But we're just back where we were. If you look at the cost of goods and services, we're not back where we were on the profitability part.
Earlier, you talked about your career journey. So, did you have a specific mentor who really shaped your success? Would love to know about them.
I'm a very collaborative person. So there's a number of people. I don't know if I would call them mentors, but definitely helped my career or helped give me advice that helped my career, or just to solve problems. So Tom Bardenett stands out. I worked with him back at Interstate. He gave me opportunities, but he also gave me advice. And even when I was looking to leave that company, we had great conversations, and he was saying, all right, this does sound like a good opportunity, but here's some questions to ask. So he even supported me in my career as I was leaving working for him, because it was a great opportunity. I had a couple of regionals that really brought me out of my shell. Was when I was first a general manager. One is a gentleman named Mark Manring, who has now passed away, and and RIP, but Mark Van Buren was another regional. Both kind of had them about the same time, but I was a new GM, so I was really green, and they were smart enough to know that I didn't want to ask questions because I thought I was supposed to know everything. So they would come to me and like, all right, let's talk about this, and here's what you need to do, and here's a good way to approach that. So really, developed me as a general manager, and I really appreciate that. And then there's just a number of people out in positions such as myself, either consulting or levels that I've been at, a president or COO, that I've been able to just call and pick their brain. What do you think about this? And have you had this happen? Or, what are your thoughts on, this industry topic? So it's great having that connection with so many people where you can bounce ideas off, and because we're all hospitable, everybody's been great and very open to having those discussions. So.
David, the hospitality industry has a lot of great events, with events like High Tech and Tech coming up. Do you get a chance to attend any hospitality events, and which one you have been to?
I went to Alice earlier this year. I've been to NYU, but I'm planning on going to the lodging conference. I think that's it's one of the better ones, and I haven't been to that one yet, but I'm looking forward to it. I think that's in October, so I'm planning on being at that one. I haven't been to High Tech or to HFT. I've always been interested in that, but in the positions that I've been in, it's a little it's more narrow. There are other people better to go to that. There's a data conference in Nashville every year put on by Star Global that is also, I think, is a great conference, but it's for the analytical people. So I've sent people to those before, knowing that there would be good information on those. But having a computer and accounting background, the High Tech and HFT is always something that's like, I really want to go to that, but I just couldn't justify it.
Your positive energy is inspiring me with all that you have learned over the years. Now, I would like to know your advice. What would you give to young professionals, those who are planning to start their career in hotel management or hospitality consultancy? And what skills of knowledge do you believe are most important for them?
Sure. It's really important to understand, getting into this industry, that it's a 24/7 year-round business. It's nonstop. It never shuts down. And there are other, obviously, industries that are the same way, hospitals and first responders and such. But when you're first in the career, go into a specific area that, and if you're studying this in college, then you should interning or working part-time in a hotel, because you don't really learn it until you're actually doing it. So I think it's a combination thing. You're not going to graduate college without experience working at a hotel and just dive into a manager position. It's really a ground up. So one thing I always recommend to people is be open to moving into different departments. In other words, you want to move around laterally before you start moving up. So if you start off at the front desk, learn it and stay there long enough to really understand it and work it. Then move into housekeeping, or you can go to front desk manager, where you're starting to do some scheduling, maybe a little bit of rooms control kind of thing. But then try to get into housekeeping. I took a front office manager and made them an executive housekeeper, and it was great, because then they were like, I don't want to do housekeeping. I'm like, but you need to know it. And it got them to learn. You move into food and beverage, try to spend some time in maintenance. Maintenance is more of a, do it for a little while, not necessarily working it, but maybe running it. Same thing with housekeeping. You don't need to necessarily work as a room attendant, but you should be a supervisor, inspector, or assistant housekeeping manager, or executive housekeeper. Because if you're running the department, you can really understand it. Sales, if you can spend time in sales. In each of these disciplines, you want to spend enough time in it to where you really understand it. You don't have to be an expert in it, but you have to understand it. Because once you start moving up, if you're a front desk manager, front office manager, you become a rooms division manager, now you're starting to learn housekeeping, but you're not running it. you're just learning it through an executive housekeeper. And then you move into a assistant GM position. You might have some access to, or responsibilities with food and beverage, but you haven't worked in food and beverage. So by the time you get to certain levels, it's too hard to take that step down and have that opportunity to really engage in that discipline or department to learn it. So my biggest number one advice is move around to different departments before you start going up. So it's kind of a swirl before you go up. Because once you go up, it's hard to make that crossover. You can learn it, but it's not the same. And if you have the opportunity, if you have the ability to, consider relocation. Being open to opportunities in other cities and states. Some people might want to say, hey, I want to live, in Chicago. I was born and raised here, and I'm going to leave Chicago. I want to be here. You can always come back. Go explore other places, because the way things are done in Phoenix, Arizona, or Los Angeles, or Seattle, or New Orleans is a lot different. In every city is different, every state is different, and locations are different. Work at different types of hotels, airport versus a resort versus a select service. So as much as possible, be open to moving around. You can always move back. But I in my early days, I grew my career by, I don't own a home. I don't have kids. At the time I wasn't married. So it was like, wherever you want me to go, I'll go, and now, a couple of places they sent me, I thought, well, this isn't what I had in mind, but it was everything, every place I was at, I learned something new, because it was a different environment, different types of employees, because it's not just the guests, it's also the people who are working for you are different in different places.
Work-life balance is the key. Can you tell us what some activities are you enjoy doing outside of work?
Yes. Travel. Number one thing for me is travel. I'm that kind of person that if someone says, hey, we should go to, Costa Rica, that night I'll be looking up Airbnb or hotels or flights and experiences, because travel is more than just doing the touristy stuff. It's experiencing things. So I really enjoy traveling. I've been traveling for work for many years, and I actually enjoy it. A lot of people are the road warriors, like, I hate all this travel. Now, I don't always enjoy the actual traveling part. I just like being other places, but it requires travel, right? I like volunteering. I've worked with some NGOs, particularly overseas, and some of those have given me opportunities to go to other countries. So it's a win-win, a double whammy for me, that I get to travel internationally. And those are great because I'm not there doing touristy things. I'm there really learning and understanding the culture and the way people are living, getting to go to their homes. It's a great experience, much more than if you just visited as a tourist. But at the same time, you're also doing good, and that makes me feel good. So combination of being able to travel, volunteer, doing good, and learning really cultures and how people live is a huge thing. And then my kids are all grown, but any chance I have a chance to do something with them, they're spread out. I've got a son in LA, a daughter in college up here in Chicago, and my oldest daughter's down in Austin, Texas. So anytime I have an opportunity to go spend or do something with them, I'll hop on a plane. Like, yep, let's go do something. So
You love for traveling, and what will be your next destination?
I'm working on a trip to Morocco. I was telling Kazim before this call that in early November last year, I went to Karachi, Pakistan, for the first time, and I'm planning a trip back to Karachi this year, and also to Turkey as well for long distance. But I've got a bunch of small trips, like New Orleans for Jazz Fest, and Los Angeles for back in the end of August for a festival up there. Might join my son with that. So.
Thank you so much, David, for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you here, and really enjoyed the conversation. And what were you saying about your expertise and industries? Really amazing. Thank you so much for once again.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed this. This was great.
Thanks for watching us. Hope you liked today's episode. Share your thoughts in the comment box. Make sure to connect with us on our social media at Advanced Hospitality Technologies. See you with another guest. Till then, take care and have a great day.